Ladies and gentlemen, once again, my name is Martin Petigo, and this is Political Affairs. It's been a while. We were away for a while, and by the grace of God, we are back. We were in Ghana to have a little documentary, and then unfortunately, we left before the Vice P for United States touched the soil of Ghana. Today's Political Affairs. We are just going to talk about the presence of our Vice P, a United States Vice P in Ghana. And then we'll have one special resource person who is going to take us through that. He's a security personnel. But before that, let me just begin by saying, in our Political Affairs program show tonight, we are examining the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris' visit to Africa. And we are asking, what does Africa stand to gain from this historic visit? The U.S. Vice President visited 3 African countries, namely Ghana, Tanzania, and Zambia. Over this week, where she announced the U.S. government's intention to invest some 55 billion US dollars in Africa over the next 3 years. Additionally, the U.S. has promised to spend an extra $15 billion in a two-way trade and investment commitment, deals and partnership in health, agribusiness, etc. The question is, what will have necessitated this visit? And how can Africa pre-position itself to fully benefit from this new U.S. partnership? Joining me this evening is a very important personality. He's no stranger to this show. His name is Mr. Adib Sani. He is a security and foreign policy analyst and executive director of Jack TK Center. Mr. Adib, you are welcome to the show.
Thank you. Martin.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Oh, I am doing good. My apologies. When I landed in Ghana,
I was just about to attack you. It's good you took a preemptive stance. I love that.
Yeah. When I landed in Ghana, I was like, wow, sweet home, sweet home. Look, when you come in over and you fly through Ebri Mountains, getting to Accra Kotoka International Airport, it's so beautiful to see the landscape, the roofing sheets, those beautiful roofing sheets. And it's like the metro has really spread. You see Ghana, Accra just like that. But unfortunately, we don't have skyscrapers. I think we should start thinking about skyscrapers because we are
no single skyscraper in Ghana.
But what disappointed me, what I didn't like, was the containers. The too many containers in town, honestly. And if, as a security expert, if they have to redesign the construction of these containers, every container should be done within a certain specification, and then it might all be painted the same color, so everything looks uniform. Or I don't know, but this is just a little tip for you, sir. Anyway,
Martin,
yes.
Martin, let me touch a little on that. You see,
all right.
That shows the gap between the rich and the poor. They are in the containers not because they wish to be there. They would have preferred being at Airport Residential or East Legon. But that is what poverty can do. And a lot of them don't even have the purchasing power to access food. How much more paint their containers? So I think, realistically speaking, what we have to do is to try to uplift people from who are below the poverty or in the poverty bracket, to bring them out of that poverty bracket, at least make them rich to some extent, the middle income status. And I think that would solve the issue of the containers. Accra has brought it. Accra is growing by the day. In fact, now Accra has met Kaswa.
Right.
Accra has met Eburi. Accra has met and even gone beyond Tema. you get me? And there are people from far who are able to come all the way to town. And the transportation network, I must say, is extremely poor. Service delivery, extremely poor. But overall, Ghana is a beautiful country with great people.
Yes. I came with some 12 African Americans who wanted to do some NGO, take care of the needy, etc., etc. So I had to send them all to Kumasi to go see if they can start something from there. But all the same, we thank God so much. But today, let's see. My VP was in Ghana. I was so proud as a Ghanaian to see my VP come to Ghana. And I saw everything on video, how you guys welcomed her, etc., etc. But the question here is, how was my VP, Kamala Harris, received on the continent of Africa? Not only in Ghana, on the continent of Africa.
Well, I mean, as characteristic of us, even if we don't like you, we open our arms, we receive you with flowers, we treat you like royalty.
Right.
That is the true African way. Even though a lot of Africans have their misgivings
Right.
about US foreign policy and what their true intentions for us are, that notwithstanding, we welcomed her. People were out in numbers. If you should have seen the queue to just go have a look at the vice president, which was, by the way, based on purely invitation. Yet people were able to stand in those long, winding queues in the scorching sun. In fact, I suffered severe sunburns on that day because there were no canopies. You had to stay in the sun. Even our vice president came in and waited for Kamala Harris in the scorching heat.
Wow.
So that should tell you our true traits, our characteristic of how we treat our strangers. And I must say, it was such a pleasant view.
Yeah.
She should be very happy about the way she was treated.
Right. Looking at the pictures and the video, I could tell that she was really at home. She felt really at home. Of course, I mean, every African American, when they touch the soil of Ghana, they always feel at home. But something is so interesting here. Some of us in the US even don't get a chance to see the president because where Washington is and where our state is, there might be somebody in the US who will never see this president until his tenure is over.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a big country with a lot of people, so it happens.
Yeah. So let's look at question number 2. What are some of the main fallout from her visit onto the continent?
I watched her news conference with the president of Ghana, where she brought up the issue of LGBTQ rights.
Right.
And she said it was a legislation that, so to speak, trampled on the rights of segments of the population, and that is the LGBTQ community. And the president told her in the face that no, she's wrong, because it is not a legislation, it is only a private member's bill in parliament, which they have the right to do so. And the president also categorically stated that there's been a significant change to the provisions in it, and Parliament, he trusts Parliament to do a good work, and in the end, it will come to his desk. Then he would also review, and we would all get to know the way forward. Okay, and so a lot of Ghanaians were very livid about that because that topic is still a taboo to some extent. In Zambia, I watched her interview, her news conference with Hichilema, the Zambian president, who stated that, look, we need to put our relationship in context here. The fact that we are close to the Chinese doesn't mean we are an enemy to West.
Right.
The fact that we are close to the West doesn't mean we are an enemy to the Chinese. We are just looking for business opportunities. We are just looking for investments to improve the lives of our people. So make no mistake about coming to snatch us from the Chinese or from the Russians, because that is not how things should work. But overall, it's been okay, just that it has provoked reactions from the segment of the population in Ghana, particularly on the LGBTQ. Also, she, I think, promised about $100 million to be distributed to, I think, 4 or 5 countries to counter the threat of terrorism. For some of us within the security space, we felt that wasn't enough because our strategy towards curbing terrorism is far richer. Okay, and I don't think 100 million to be distributed to 4 or 5 countries would be able to provide the jobs for young people, opportunities to give people access to basic necessities of life, such as food, water, sanitation, shelter, etc. I don't think it's able to improve the human rights records of a lot of these countries within this region. And we feel that more has to be done, even if it's not from the US, but at least this is a step in the right direction. But we need more partners to contribute so we are able to collectively fight this menace.
Yeah, thank you. Her presence, and then the reason for that finances, I understand, is for business, and then health issues, and then terrorism. But let's do a little dichotomy over here. I was just reading in the newspapers that Russia is willing to forgive us of all our debt. You think that's a reason why my madam is right
Okay,
in Africa?
okay. So now, Martin, to the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Why? Why?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are various strands to this, and it's very important and educative. So I would pray your listeners and viewers pay attention to this.
Right.
On one hand, is America reaching out to us not because they love us, but because, basically speaking, you are making your enemy your friend because he's an enemy to your enemy? So, in essence, what I mean is America reaching out to us not because they love us, but as a means to getting rid of Russia and Chinese influence in Africa? Or are they reaching us to us because they care about us, they love us, and they feel that poverty poses a security risk to America as well? Or perhaps are they looking for new business opportunities because of the war in Ukraine? It's a bit confusing, but we can go into the nitty gritty.
Right.
Between 1885 and 1914, there was a scramble for Africa, otherwise known as the Great Partition of Africa, amongst 7 great European powers. That is what led to the partition of Africa. Today, I can confidently tell you, Martin, that what we are witnessing is history in the making. It is the modern day great scramble for Africa. Just that this time around, things are a bit different from 1885 to 1914. Now we have a say and we call the shots.
Right.
Africa at this time is in its strongest position yet. When two of your enemies are fighting, just in perspective, I'm being metaphorical here.
Yeah.
What does it do to you? What happens to you? It rather makes you strong, right? Good. And so, because of the Russian-Ukraine war, the West has now gotten to know that we cannot count on the East, hook, line, and sinker, and so the need for us to look elsewhere. That is why Africa is being scrambled for by 4 major powers: European Union, the US, Russia, and China. Now, let's go into the specifics.
Right.
The US announced a new Africa policy, which basically places priority on sub-Saharan Africa as it hinges directly on US national security. And so about $55 billion was announced and intended to be invested in Africa in the next few years. We've had many US officials come in and go out of Africa just to establish that contact and hopefully that relationship. The European Union have been starved of gas and other essential commodities. So you know what they did? They came all the way to Lagos, Nigeria, and are intending to lay a gas pipeline from Lagos all the way to Europe. They are looking for opportunities here. Africa has the rich natural resources. Africa has the human resource capability because the median age in Africa is less than 19 years. Some 5 years ago, according to the Africa Economic Outlook, by the year 2045, the youth population in Africa is going to double. So what does it tell you? Unlike Japan and other countries, France and the rest, that has an aging population. Africa actually has a growing youth population. By the year 2050, 1 out of 5 citizens on earth will be African. So that tells you a lot. Yeah. Russia has also decided to provide security assistance to many African countries, including Central African Republic, Mali, Sudan, Burkina Faso, and some other countries that you and I might not be aware of. Russia is reasserting its dominance and influence in Africa, as might have been seen with their joint military operations, exercises, naval exercises in South Africa. And I was in Cape Town when it happened, together with China. And China, as you might also know, surpassed the US since 2009 in being Africa's largest trading partner and putting the trade between Africa and China at well over $300 billion last year. Wow. Africa has invested in the Belt and Road Initiative, in which about 140 countries have subscribed to, including the building of a dream highway from what we call from a town, I think it's a port, a seaport town, right, all the way to Brazzaville, over 500 kilometers. They do all manner of constructions in Ghana. Our new stadium, it is the Chinese that built it. Our Foreign Affairs Ministry, it is the Chinese. Our Defense Ministry, it is the Chinese. The AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, it is the Chinese. When you go to Nigeria, almost every major construction, national construction, is by the Chinese. They are forgiving our loans and they are willing to give us more without coming to tell us you have to accept LGBT.
Right.
I hope you get the drift. So a lot more countries feel that the Chinese are not giving us conditionalities like the Bretton Woods. That is why they are looking to the Chinese. And a lot more countries have completely lost faith in the West, especially the French-speaking countries. Look, French people's perception about Paris in a lot of Francophone countries is very disturbing. You all saw the news conference between Macron and President Tshisekedi of DRC. At the point, it looked like a banter between the two of them. So that should tell you a lot. That is why the US is saying, hey, we need to be up and doing. We cannot allow the Chinese, the Russians to take over.
This is very interesting because we can, you see, the US has always had bilateral discussions in trade with Ghana. I believe some years back they wanted to have a military base, and every year, every administration that comes, at least they are able to vote some kind of financial assistance. I don't know about the Donald Trump era, but looking at Donald Trump's era, 4 years of administration of Donald Trump's era, and then what we are seeing now from President Biden, is there any change in policy between Africa and the United States?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Because I remember when Donald Trump came, his first national security policy document, which is reviewed, I think every 2 years or so, there was a sharp shift from the global way of looking things to the very localized way, as against Barack Obama's policy. All right, so to Trump, it was all America, America first, nothing else. So he withdrew from a number of trade agreements, including NAFTA and the rest, from the climate change accord, and there was tension between the US and NATO because Trump felt that no, NATO has to pay for the protection. South Korea also had to pay for the protection, and Africa didn't really matter because he had a good word to describe us as SH. Okay, and that I must say didn't resonate well with a lot of Africans. He was more inward looking, and so US policy shifted a bit. It shifted a bit away from Africa. That is why the Biden administration is trying to keep up because they've been left behind
Right.
because of Trump's policy. In fact, the Chinese and the Russians took advantage of Trump's policy and asserted their influence in Africa. Now, Biden is in the White House and he feels that, hey, there's a vacuum. So why don't we work harder to fill it before the Russians and the Chinese take over everything? So indeed, it goes without saying confidently that the Trump administration really negated the progress that have been made in years before he became president with respect to Africa-US relations.
Right. Before I come to how this money will be dispersed, you made mention of US trying to focus its attention more on the sub-Saharan Africa. Why? Why sub-Saharan Africa? What is so special about that part of Africa, the West Africa, as compared to the whole of the African sub-region? Yeah.
We also have a lot of oil. We have great minerals. In fact, Martin, I sometimes feel that the Democratic Republic of Congo is the richest country on earth. Goodness.
Really?
Goodness. Look, cobalt, diamond, bauxite, and the rest. God has blessed that country.
But unfortunately,
it's just the politics and the mismanagement.
And I'm so surprised that, for example, I'm so surprised that this has also come up again. They will, from your point of view as a security analyst, you can predict, which I trust you, that it's one of the most richest country on earth, but you don't see that money, that worth, go down to the ordinary person. And what is the African Union doing about that?
You see, the African Union has its restrictions. Okay, they hardly interfere in the internal affairs of countries. The best they do is to issue statements and perhaps to temporarily withdraw you. Suspend you, I should say, from the union, but not much they are able to do because this is pervasive and it permeates through almost every African society in which the country has a lot of resources. In fact, Ghana has no excuse to be poor. No. We have the timber, we have the cocoa, we have the gold, we have the oil for crying out loud. Yet fuel is expensive in Ghana. Why? We have an oil refinery that doesn't refine oil, but we decide to import. Why?
Bad policy, I guess.
No, corruption. Because a single person would have his corrupt, insatiable thirst for money. The whole country is taken to ransom. I went to the Tema Oil refinery. They say, oh, they don't have the capability, they don't have the capacity to refine oil. I went there and I realized it's a lie. It's not true. They are preventing the Tema Oil refinery from refining our oil into finished products because they are importing it and making a lot of money from it. And so if Tema Oil refinery refines, that means they will not be in business. And that is a problem with Nigeria also.
How come just some few elements will just hold the whole country ransom?
The lack of transparency, lack of accountability, the political system is corrupt. And that is why we're here today. And usually I don't like doing politics with my analysis, but I love to tell the truth. I love to say it as it is. When this government came to power, our debt stock was about 120 billion Ghana cedis. Today, it's about 600 billion. Yet the country is broke, and without IMF, the economy is going to collapse. A lot of taxes. Ghana is the only country that imposes taxes for COVID, a COVID levy, when other countries are cushioning their citizens through by providing incentives, cash bailouts, and the rest. Ghana is actually taxing its people in the midst of all of this wahala into poverty.
This is
just 2 days ago. Three new taxes, almost every month there are new taxes in the midst of all this, and you don't know where all the money went. COVID monies that came in the billions to date, government has not been able to account for $1, my brother. $1 has not been accounted for, and they are working free, and they are happy, and they are borrowing more, and they are talking. Yes. When the COVID testing started, Ghana has the most expensive testing regime in the world. To test, $150. And at the point, because of the outcry, it came to $100. Why? Even the US, that is way richer than us, didn't test for $100. So you see, the problem is structural.
Right.
It's structural. And that is why we are where we are. So until young people like us come out and stop being spectators and become citizens and speak against what is going on, then it becomes a problem, because it simply means consent.
It's okay, let's just dwell a little bit into local politics. You've raised a very important question, and it's about the people must speak to power, right? Because if they cannot speak now, if a new regime comes, a new administration comes, still they will not be able to speak. When we look at the history of this country, realize that every administration that comes, they come to do their own thing, and the people still get, I mean, the individuals or things get tougher and tougher. Sometimes we try to console ourselves in saying that, oh, this administration is better than the other. But it looks like, look at the health system, look at the roads, etc. Yeah. So if the Ghanaian citizenry we need to learn how to speak up and act now, then when a new administration comes, it will still be the same. Anyway, your word on that, and then I'll move to the next question.
Martin,
yes.
I mean, we have low expectations as a people.
Right.
So, for example, let me just give you a typical laughable example. A school project will be put up, like a school block, and there would be a huge picture of the president, and everybody is talking about it and hailing the president as if the money came from the president's pockets. Meanwhile, it's taxpayers' money. A toilet facility will be constructed, and my goodness, the president's name would be written huge, boldly, as if he's done you the biggest lifetime favor. Meanwhile, it is your money. So that shows you our state of mind, our mentality. We have low expectations. What the politician is supposed to do and is obliged to do, and it's his responsibility, when he does it, it looks like a favor.
Right.
That's the problem.
Well, I guess the NDC people are listening to us, because if God should permit them to come into power, they cannot repeat some of these things. I believe that they should start conscientizing the Ghanaians right now, because right now it looks like everything is going to be in their favor, even though the incumbent is not going to let them have it so easily like that.
No way, no way.
Anyway, let's go to foreign policy. Let's look at still today's topic is all about the United States VP visiting Ghana. Can you tell me what you know about how this money will be disbursed? Which of the countries are going to benefit more than the other?
I think it's Ghana, Benin, Togo, Burkina Faso. I think so. I think these countries. But we are yet to know what specifically it will be used for.
Right.
But I'm beginning to hear that it's used for intelligence gathering and some other purposes. But our issue is way bigger than that. Um, and sometimes it makes me feel whether really we needed that money because I understand at the AU level we have about 200 million dollars in their accounts to fight terrorism. Yet because of the lack of a strategy, the money is there and nobody seems to be using it. So it makes me wonder if we have 100 million from the US, what will be able to use it for? Secondly, we have a number of initiatives within the sub-region aimed primarily at countering the threat of terrorism. One is the Accra Initiative, which has the main aim of preventing the spillover from the Sahel region towards the littorals. Okay, we have other initiatives like the G5 Sahel. We have the Joint Task Force. We have MINUSMA. And we have a number of operations as well, including Bakuba that has ended, Operation Bakhan, Seval,
Yeah.
Takuba, and the rest. And because of the splintered nature of the operations and the initiatives, and as a matter of fact, it doesn't help our situation because our ability to fight terrorism lies in our unified posture. It lies in our ability to partner and collaborate. But if you have it splintered, as if it has now become business, which by the way it is, then it becomes a problem. Okay? That is why we need to harness, we need to integrate all of these initiatives into one
Right.
and as a unified, because terrorism is internationalized. Okay, if Ghana does its homework well and Burkina doesn't, what it means is ours is useless. If Togo does its homework well and Benin doesn't, it's useless. Okay, so we need to do things in a coordinated fashion and share intelligence real time. And I think to a large extent that is going to help. But for now, it makes me wonder whether really indeed we have that strategy. And there's a new report, the Global Terrorism Index, that says that no, I think 3 out of the 5 most dangerous terrorist groups in the whole world are from Africa.
Can you name them?
Yes, we have Al Shabaab,
Mm.
we have Jenin, Jamal al Nusra, well, Islamia, well, Muslimin. Then we have the Al Qaeda affiliated groups as well. I think, apart from, then we have this group, ISGC, uh,
Wow.
ISGS, yeah, ISIS in the Greater Sahel, and some other groups. Okay, and it also says, by the way, that 3 of the 5 most deadliest attacks in 2022 happened in Africa as well.
Can
And West Africa has become um, the epicenter of terrorism globally. So that should tell us a lot about what's going on here.
is it
That is why,
is it because of the loose?
sorry,
Is it because we have low security in these neighboring countries, or because we have this vast land and it can't be bordered and monitored, like maybe in Mali, the Saharan Desert, etc., etc.? Is that
it's a plethora of issues,
right?
okay, and they are economic, social, and political, and even geopolitical in nature. For example, um, in Mali, we have the, the, the Arab Bedouin tribes, okay, the Tuaregs, who feel they've been marginalized for years on end by the blacks and the black government in Bamako. So they woke up and decided that we want our Republic of Azawad. And that is what started the latest round of violence that resulted in terrorist organizations coming in and filling the vacuum. Okay, and the French also came in and it didn't help. In Burkina, it has a lot to do with the economic situation in the country and the vast lands as well, which remains ungoverned. And these terrorist groups are also able to fill the vacuums in the ungoverned spaces, are able to impose tax, and are able to provide services that the government is not able to provide. That is why it is not surprising that there are some parts of Burkina Faso that is dominated by Christians, where there is active jihadist activity there.
Wow.
Because they provide them, yes, they provide them when the government is not able to provide. And there's also this talk about corruption and one relating to the purchase of military hardware for the Malian military that had a line in it, bulletproof socks.
Wow.
Can you believe this? Socks that is bulletproof. It wasn't true. And in Nigeria, for example, I asked the general, why are you not able to defeat Boko Haram despite you being the most powerful military in West Africa? And his answer is one word. Your guess is as good as mine. Corruption.
Corruption.
Corruption. So what is meant for the military is diverted. The officers are not happy. The soldiers are not happy. They are not fighting with their hearts. They are fighting with their stomach because they are hungry. Okay, and there was also this talk about Malian soldiers switching side to join the militants because the militants pay more than the Malian soldiers that can go for months without pay. So you see, it's a number of issues. The issue of marginalization, even climate change is part of it, because you have a lot of these. For example, in Ghana, annually, you have Fulanis coming into the country with their cattle from northern Nigeria, through Benin, through Togo, into Ghana through the Oti region to look for land, to look for grass for their cattle because of climate change. The whole, where they come from is deserted, or it's become desert, so there's no food for their cows. And when they come in, they get into contact with the locals, and it's conflict, and it's become a cycle, by the way. You see, so it's a number of issues.
Oh my God. Let me just ask, from statistics, when you see the West African sub-region, Ghana as a nation, what do you see? What kind of prediction can you give me in the next 5 years, security-wise?
Well, I pray we don't suffer any attack, because Ghana still remains a virgin so far as terrorist attacks are concerned. All our neighbors have been touched, and even beyond. It doesn't mean that we don't have them amongst us, because a number of reports has indicated so, that we have them amongst us. But if they are able to succeed to attack us, that would have serious implications on our economy. Serious implications. And I'm hoping that in the next 5 years, like you put it, we are able to coordinate in a much more strategic manner with our neighbors to prevent a spillover into the country. But my biggest concern, so far as our security is concerned, Martin, is not terrorists coming in to blow things up, but it's youth unemployment. Youth unemployment continues to be the biggest threat to the security of Ghana. A lot of people are going into the criminal enterprise not because they so wish to, but because they don't have any way out. There was this issue of an MP who was killed, an MP from Fansiman, by robbers. And the information we are having is that he introduced himself, he identified himself as the MP. And the perpetrators were like, you are those spending our money, you are those squandering our money. And they shot him.
Pathetic.
You know, so I'm afraid that crime might go up, and that would be, well, that would pose to us a more serious threat than terrorists coming from somewhere to visit mayhem on us. The internal factors are more grave than the external factors, and we really need to pay attention.
I believe the security apparatus are well prepared, well trained to handle such a thing, and I also believe the churches are still preaching. The mosques, the imams are also still talking, and so that no matter how much tempers go high from that sector, they will be able to. For some time, I think the churches.
So, Martin,
Yes.
Martin, Martin,
Yeah.
it's not about preaching. We've heard enough. We've heard enough from the motivational speakers who tell us they started businesses with $10. You know, but when you do dig in there, you realize their parents were rich or their uncle was somewhere providing all the funds. But that notwithstanding, I think it's still worth giving it a try. But we
Right.
need government to be more assertive. We need government to be more practical in their approach. The youth have heard enough. They are simply tired of the preponderance. They are tired of the theft, of the corruption, of the lack of accountability, and the sheer arrogance on the part of politicians, and that is what is peeving them more. And if care is not taken and they come out in their numbers, that would be a problem for us. I pray it doesn't happen that way, and we will find ways to register our displeasure through lawful means rather than taking matters into our own hands. But better watch out.
Right. Well, I'll ask you one last question. This one's a local news. The last time you came here, we talked about the Kusasis. So far, so good. What's going on? Is there peace now, or they are still battling in between the
Uh,
chiefs?
Oh, my phone is with the kids. I wanted to play an audio recording for you to hear.
Oh,
Something that happened last week, the exchange of gunfire in Boku,
still.
which continued, I think it continued for about 12 hours
What?
from the evening up until day broke. And you hear the sound of gunfire, then you wonder whether this is really Ghana. There are still tensions in the area, a lot of tensions. You know, the Mampresis have skinned their own chief for Boku,
Right.
and that has incensed the government, that has incensed the Kusasis. And the newly skinned Boku, the Mampresi Boku Naba, is still in Naleru,
Okay.
but would wish to relocate to Boku to rule. And that is the bone of contention here, because as soon as he does, the Kusasis will not also take kindly to that. And government might also make attempts to arrest, like it was tried, but failed woefully in Nairobi. So the tensions, they are still high, and we can only hope for the best.
Honestly, I love that side of the country. So beautiful. I think the last time I visited Kusasi, that region, so the land is so flat, and
Absolutely.
you can have a lot of golf courses around that area. I mean, so many beautiful things. And when I'm hearing some of this, things, my heart ache. But
The North has great potentials, I
right,
must say. We have the land.
yeah,
In fact, the land we have at the Tamale Airport is enough to make us the largest, what do you call it, inland port in West Africa.
wow,
It can make Tamale a major trading hub that would link Ghana and other landlocked countries within the sub-region.
right.
But there's no commitment, and because of some of these issues, it discourages people from investing. It's not all of the North that is on fire. It's just a few places. The North is vast. It's huge. Oh.
Yeah, no, it's a very
It's,
beautiful place.
it's very, very huge.
Yeah,
There are nice places to be. Now Dagbon is very peaceful,
yeah,
extremely peaceful.
yeah.
And I don't think what is happening in Boku should discourage anyone from coming to
Yeah.
visit us.
It's a very beautiful place. Today I was having a conference with the team that I came with, Ghana, with African Americans. I sent them to Kumasi, and then they had to tour the whole of the northern region. They came out with a very good response about the place. Today we're having a conference today on Zoom, and they intend to come back to do some investment in schools, libraries, etc., etc.
Are they still in Kumasi or they are back in the States?
They are back with me in a state. Their next move is going to be in Kenya. We already have something going on in Kenya, and we'll have to come back to Ghana, and then from there we have to go to France to do some few things. I might be part of the team, but let's see what happens. You know, I'm here, but my heart is still there. you know, but let's see. In fact, Mr. Habib, thank you so much for the opportunity coming over to explain things to us. You know, sometimes when we listen to BBC, we don't get the vibe. You know, they just summarize everything. So I know listeners are listening to you to see exactly what is happening in the country. I just want to say thank you so much, and I'm so sorry that when I came to Ghana, I couldn't even get a chance to pass by.
Yeah, forgive it. Yeah, forgive it. That's okay. Martin, that's okay.
Yeah.
But we have to try as much as we can to touch base.
Yeah.
So we can work together to.
Yeah. I think we should form a coalition, right? With some of us, we are in the media, form a coalition, and then periodically have meetings and things, and then educate people in this part of this world about some of the rich lands, the beautiful things that's going on in Africa, not only in Ghana, but in all part of Africa.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our big brother, Adib Sani, who is the chief executive of no, hold on. He is the security and foreign policy analyst and the executive director of JATK Center. He was our guest who took us through some series of events and concerning our own VP Harris, who visited Ghana. I believe this program has been very, very educative, and please to stay tuned, subscribe, go to our channels, and then be part of this great family. My name is Martin Petigo, and then I just want to say God bless you all. Stay tuned next week, Sunday, for another episode of Political Affairs.
Martin.
Yeah.
Oh, some of these things involve me.